I'm Olive.
I'm Julia.
I'm Nick, and
We're
we're
Sunflower
Sunflower
Bean,
Bean.
and you're watching Consequence. Hi!
Good
to see y'all again.
Yeah, long time no see. How you been?
Been good. I've been all right. How have you all three been doing?
Good.
Pretty good. We've been home for like a week since we ended our UK tour.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll get into the whole tour thing, but like, Julia, I think I saw you at Governor's Ball and like didn't recognize that it was you until you got on stage, and I was like, oh crap, that's what I was just saying hi to.
Gov Ball was fun. Gov Ball was really fun. That was like, I think, I mean, Portugal the Man are so awesome, and we had been like talking about trying to like sing together or do something or do a cover, like we had talked about it for a long time. And when I saw that they were playing Gov Ball and like that was the last festival that we had done before the pandemic, I was like, oh shit, we should try to do this. And it was like all up until the air until I think literally like 6 a.m. that morning, and I got a text that was like, do you know Moon Age Daydream? And I was like, yeah, absolutely I do. Yeah, we're doing this. So it was kind of like one of those like, if it happens, it happens, magical musical day type things. And yeah, I mean, that it was awesome.
It's that stuff that you missed real hard over the last like 2 years, and then
there was a lot less, I would say, musical spontaneity or like spontaneity in general. So
right. Well, I mean, the pandemic did threaten to kind of derail a lot of stuff. I mean, it did derail a lot of stuff, but like I feel like it put bands at risk of kind of never having another shot or never having a shot in the first place. And for you three in particular, known as a band that tours like to breaking point, like to a point that I think would put a lot of other artists like into the ground. You three have spent so much of your lives just like this, like right next to each other at all times.
Yeah.
So you know, I imagine at the start, at least of the early days of things, before you decamped upstate together, you were apart for a long time, physically as friends, let alone as co-workers, bandmates.
Yeah, that's true.
So just like how did you deal with, I don't know, I guess it feels like it's almost like a restart again for Sunflower Bean. So how did it feel like being apart and then getting to come back together again?
I think, being apart like those first 3 months was definitely really tough. And I feel like we were like, I don't know, things instantly felt better when we got back together, because it's like I don't know, it's like when you spend that much time with people, like your personalities and just like your like auras kind of click in a certain way that I think can make you feel like you sometimes. So like I think it was definitely, that was like one of the hardest things initially, was like not being able to get together. But then once we were able to, and like you could like get tested, like then we were like, all right, like we should just go, you know, live together, like make this record.
Yeah.
Right.
When we did get together,
when we got together in I guess it was May of 2020.
Yeah, it was May of 2020, and it was like all of a sudden we were like together, and we had like a giant party, and it felt like the pandemic was over. Right. I remember I kept on saying it's over.
Yeah, even though like, you were just like 3 months in.
It was still just the very beginning, yeah.
Yeah, it was, I mean, songs were like really like pouring out of us at the time, and a few of those songs made it onto the record. Some of the I think really special ones were written really early, and it kind of sucks. We had to kind of lose that. We couldn't like always like stay at this house, but we were sort of going back and forth, and you know, then it became you know, there was a ton of BLM stuff in New York that summer, and we were doing a lot of supply drops and like coming back to the city a lot. But once we got back together in May and we're writing, I feel like, you know, the team was assembled, and it was really like, it was really, thinking back on it now, it was really kind of romantic because we were just all sort of like nestled together, and we had our sort of songwriting schedule, and then we would have like recreation hour where we could like take a walk or play basketball. It was like summer camp. It was like,
good. That's
yeah,
exactly
it
what
was
came to
very
mind.
much, it was very
Yeah.
much
It
summer
was
camp.
romantic.
It was romantic.
Yeah.
And it was personal too, because like at least I thought that the music would never come out.
Mhm.
Like I was totally fine with the fact that like it would probably never come out. We'd probably never go on tour again.
Wow.
And we were just doing it for the love of the game. And it was the only thing that felt good to do. It was like the only thing you could do besides like either like cook a meal or like go on a hike or work on music, just to like in order to feel some sort of like fulfillment during such like a tough time.
Well, I mean, that must have led to some like real change in kind of the creative and the writing process. From at least Nick's perspective, if he's sitting there thinking like, this is just for us at this point, more so than, you know, the wide scope of I keep saying the job because that's, I don't know, the job of being an artist. So yeah, I mean, at least I guess for you, Nick, like how was it? How did that mindset kind of come out in the work you ended up created?
I feel like it was like two things coming together that created this sort of like freedom for us, where it was like we were older and more in control of like our abilities and like more self like confident in just our ability to write.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're younger, it's really hard to write songs. Like at least for me, it was like almost impossible to write songs. So whenever we got one, it would be like really like guarded and be like, we need to protect this. Like it might not ever happen again that we get a song that we like. But, you know, once we were like 24, it was starting to become easier to like navigate that and like sort of like steer the ship towards where you wanted your writing to be. And that combined with like the like not having any pressure, because even on our first record, like it felt like we had like this opportunity that we needed to seize and we needed to do the best work we could possibly do. And then the second album was like we only had 6 months to like get that together and like have like our you know, not our comeback, but like our like follow-up to like having a little bit of success. And then that combined with the feeling of like it's never gonna come out, like you don't need to worry about your career, you might never tour again, the world might never go back to normal, there might be a new pandemic that's even worse. Like it just was like those two things came together and it was like just do whatever you want, have fun, like don't care about anything, and like write 100 songs or whatever.
And I think, you know, like right before the pandemic started, we were supposed to like go to LA and go to Nashville and like, you know, have all these meetings and do all that kind of like the, you know, the way that a lot of records and a lot of really great records are made these days, which is, you know, lots of collaboration, lots of writers, lots of hands. And which is to say, we love collaborating, we love writing with people, we love writing songs, like we love the whole thing. But I think because of how small the world was, we had, you know, just, you know, we obviously knew Jacob Portrait and had worked with him before and worked a little bit with him right before the pandemic on Who Put You Up to This. He kind of, it just sort of became like, okay, this is going to be like a New York record. It's going to be us and Jacob Portrait, and that's it. And a lot of it was, you know, a lot of the producing, I think, was like emotional, like conversations that we would have with him where he was kind of like, you know, keep going, you know, every day, wake up, keep going. Because we would want, you know, we would want to finish this thing so we could move on emotionally. And he was like, don't leave anything on the table, you know, just like show up, keep it open, keep writing, see what happens. And like the more scared you are of what you're making, probably the better it is. And I think that's a big part of understanding this record and all the places that it goes, because we had so much time to go through musical phases and so many things that we wanted to explore and like put them together as this piece.
I find it funny that the like the download that you know, the press download that I have and uploaded to my iTunes, lists it as unknown genre. And and like you were saying, you got to explore a lot of stuff, and the record is genreless in the best sense of the word, right? Like there's a pop, indie pop-ish kind of vibe throughout, but it touches everything.
Mhm.
Did that come out of the time, the push from Jacob? Why were you three so interested in exploring such different vibes, and frankly different vibes from what came before?
I think there's kind of two sides to it. One is like what I was just kind of saying, which is that, we had this we had so much more time. Usually if you're, let's say you're, one artist making a record, you have, you have 6 months, you're gonna make a record that's like within that phase of that 6 months that you're in right there and what you want to be doing. We're a project where we're three artists that come together because we like what the three of us make together and think that it's cool and original and fun, and we're like dedicated to that idea. So we have all of our different, tastes and things that we put forward to, make what we think is most interesting. And so the time to go through those phases and those individual inspirations. And then I think on the other hand, this is the first record we've made that was really not influenced by nostalgia or a particular era or a particular moment in rock history, even though we never wanted to be, a vintage band. If you're a band, you're already referencing something that's very vintage. And I think especially Nick listens to so much new music and was also pushing us to, think in a forward way. That coupled with Olive engineering so much and our writing strategy sort of changing to writing as we were recording and it being a lot more of a digital process. So all of that, to like taking all of that in, coupled with I think a realization that I've been having is that like we're the true Zillenials. So, I was born in 1996. These two were born in 1995. And we spent, the beginnings of our careers and in Brooklyn, trying to get the millennials to understand us, trying to get them to think that, guitar solos were cool. And like, yet we didn't even have to commit to that because we grew up as like these free listeners, like I remember being 10 years old, holding the first iPod, and as a listener, changing from a CD listener to an iPod listener, and all of a sudden, being so influenced by and falling in love with singles, basically becoming a singles listener, and how that has now led to Spotify listening. And right. I think this record kind of has, it wants to give that feeling of like your favorite playlist. It's like this kind of playlist that we've made for you that shows our tastes, our style, and is, firmly living in the now and in the future, and also shows, something that I think that Gen Z does really well, which is adopts culture, style, flavor, without judgment, without judging themselves, and being able to create something new from that. Does that make sense?
It does. And I actually, as soon as you said you wanted the record to, or you think the record feels sort of like your favorite playlist, I feel like that's something that that gets said a lot, but as soon as you said, I'm like, that's exactly what this album is, though. Like, it's the one, I feel like it's one that really succeeded in that thrust, because it really, I mean, it all sounds like Sunflower Bean, but you really hear such variety in genre. And, this is Olive's first time kind of more behind the boards engineering on this. So I guess it's kind of like a multi-part question, but when you were dealing with all of those different sounds and all of those different styles, were you learning on the fly how to handle all that different stuff? And just like how were you able to help guide the sound of this record with those new skills?
Yeah, I mean, I was learning like the entire time. Like I'm still learning, and kind of like I feel like every day I looked at it as like an opportunity. I mean, I guess this is like obvious, but to like get better and like do something new. So like we'd like write a song every day, and like every day that was a chance for me to try something different and see if I can beat what I did the day before. So like that was basically the ethos of like this entire record. And it's like, of course, the recordings got better and better and better as we would go. And like, I think we re-recorded a couple things like a year later to like the day for some stuff. And like it's funny to see those differences because like for when it's like us three together, like we work super quickly, and like Nick like is like one take done, like he needs it, like he's like we're not waiting around like getting sounds really. But like that, a lot of that stuff happened with me just like putting on headphones and going in for like 12 hours straight and like actually getting like lost in the stuff and then like presenting it back and being like, is this good? Like, do we like it? And sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no. And like, right. But I don't know. It just was really like, I don't know, like energizing and like just I realized like that's kind of I think how I shine creatively is in this position. It made me a better drummer too, because like I could kind of like not care about playing the drums because I understood how I feel like I began to understand how they like actually work in like the recording of a song and what to do with that.
Like the fact that we actually like practiced like as a 3-piece to record our first 2 records like might as well have happened in like 1970 compared to like where we are now.
But yeah, like I was able to harness that kind of like fucked up like magic that we have in like the computer and like just all like in the box and editing and stuff, and that's like cool. That way we could keep I don't know, like the super like special like actual takes that we did like a year ago or something, and then we'd try to replace them, be like, no, like that's not it. I don't know. Yeah.
Just at a basic level, like what was it that finally, I don't know if it's finally, but what was it that made you go like, okay, I want to try this? Like, how did you even approach it to Julia and Nick? And Julia's like, hey, I want to try to get more into this. And then also, how did working with Jacob,
JP,
aid you in that?
Yeah, I think I just like suggested, I was like, hey, like I think we should like just like try to like demo all our own stuff. Like when we got back from the Beck tour, like summer 2019, and they were like down, and yeah, it just started off like that, really scrappy. But I think pretty quickly we're like, oh, this is cool. Like to record a song and have something to like listen to all within a day. And like just the 3 of us, it just felt, I think, fulfilling in a different way than before. And then working with JP is awesome because we kind of like, we just kept sending him songs and like stems throughout like, like the 1.5 year process, and like he would just like do whatever from like completely disassemble them and build them back up in like a different way, or just like change like one thing, or like add like a synth or something, you know. So
he's his own artist completely, and is like, it is the most Sunflower Bean, we had the most control over it ever, but it's also very much a record in collaboration with Jacob Portrait, who's a crazy amazing artist in his own right.
Yeah, I think we've said it a number of ways that it's very much like, this is Sunflower Bean, like this is as presented as you 3 can be, creatively, sonically. You're just like, this is as us as we could possibly get. Which there's a lot of theme here about sort of this falsehood of expectations presented by an older generation that, by the very nature of how those older generations operated, are no longer realistic in modern America. But instead of feeling defeated or necessarily angry about it, songs like Roll the Dice, even Stand By Me, kind of take on a resilience against it.
I said definitely.
Yeah. So I guess just basically, like, what was your thinking when you took all of the stuff that you recorded over those 6 months and narrowed it down to these? What was the thematic thread that you were like, these are the songs that make an album?
I mean, I think like once we wrote Headful of Sugar and had the title and kind of started thinking that was going to be the name, and we were like, oh, Headful of Sugar, oh my God, it's perfect. You know, we kind of like, we found that title and we felt like it really was encapsulating a lot of what we were writing about, and the record itself. Like, there's a lot of times that the genres that we were playing with, and you know, the themes that we're playing with are oftentimes like either working together or doing two things at the same time within the record, you know? Like the sugar was both referring to, you know, the fast entertainment and communication that we were engaging in that was heightened during the pandemic. While the sugar is also the poppiness of the record, the sweetness, our dream of wanting to make something in a dark time that was fun and that felt like it was meant to be experienced in real life, like a real lust for life kind of record, you know? I think like one of my favorite stories about this record that like really, I think, encapsulates what making it was like, and I think who we are, is when we wrote and recorded Other Side, which is track 3, I think.
Yep, track 3.
And it came like really near the end of the record, and you know, like I was walking down these stairs and Olive was like playing the keys over here and just like playing these chords, and I had been coming out of like a really, you know, dark, like grieving period. I was having a lot of health problems. I was coming out of a really dark year within the pandemic. And I hadn't like written anything about it. I just like didn't really know how. And, you know, Olive was playing these chords and I just like picked up the guitar and started singing and playing along. And like within like an hour or so, hour and a half, we had the whole song. You know, it's like a poem really. So that's not necessarily saying that much, but everything just sort of came out of me. And we were getting to, you know, the end of the recording and sort of trying to figure it out, and Olive was just like, I know how it ends. Everyone get on the drums. Everybody play the drums. Just play anything that you want. No matter what it is, like it's going on the record, you know? And like, I can't play drums for shit. Nick is a little better than me. Olive is great, obviously, but you know, we all just got there and played it, and she hit record, and you know, she turned it into like this really beautiful collage that, you know, that made it on the record and that gets really distorted. And like, for me, that's like a perfect example of like our band and our friendship and this record.
Yeah, I think that's something that's actually, I haven't thought about this before. It's always interesting when like you start to realize things, but I guess it's like an album that's like a lot about community and a lot about all the people surrounding us. And the fact that there's 3 of us and we all have different like friend groups and social circles, and then they all come together and meet each other. And like when we write, it's about these people and about our friends, and it's for them. And it's like, there's like sort of like, even through being a band that's like a multimedia project, you have all these different people with different skill sets who like end up being pulled into your orbit and creating like this network of like people. So it's like, for instance, like all our friends are involved in the band in some way. They've been in our videos, they've made merch for us, they've worked at the shows. I live with a tour manager and a sound engineer. Like, it's the opposite of like kind of like that bedroom isolated album. It's like such a record made by many people, even though we're just the people writing and recording it for the most part.
It's more of a commune record. I feel like I asked you a really poorly worded question like 12 minutes ago, and then you just answered everything I could have ever asked, like explained the entire record all the way through. It was like I kind of just want to chunk that whole thing out and just post that. Just that's this
Please
is Headful of
that.
Sugar. Just listen.
Yeah,